Jake Morrison sat in the huge meeting room on Nexus Prime Station. The room was so big that his voice would echo if he spoke too loud. Around him sat beings from across the galaxy. Some looked like giant crystals that glowed with inner light. Others were like clouds of gas that somehow could think and talk. A few looked almost human but had blue skin or extra arms. Jake was Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council. He had been doing this job for 5 years now. Every day he came to these meetings and listened to aliens talk about laws and rules for the galaxy. Most of the time, they ignored him completely. Today was different, though. Today they were voting on something that would hurt Earth badly. "We now vote on Resolution 7749, said the council speaker. The speaker was a tall, thin alien with purple skin and 4 eyes. "This resolution requires the Earth to give us 60% of their rare Earth metals. They must also send 100,000 human soldiers to fight in our war." Jake stood up quickly. His chair made a loud noise against the floor. "I object to this resolution," he said. "Earth cannot give away that much of our resources, and we cannot send that many soldiers. We need them to protect our own worlds." A crystal being named Vexithari began to glow brighter. When these beings got angry, they glowed. "The human speaks out of turn," Vexithari said. The alien's voice sounded like breaking glass. "Lesser species must learn their place in the cosmic order. Earth will do as the council commands." Jake felt his face get hot with anger. Lesser species. They always called humans that. For 30 years, Earth had been part of this council. For 30 years, humans had followed their rules and helped with their wars. They gave resources. They shared technology. They sent soldiers to die in alien battles. And still, the council treated them like children. Captain Lisa Barnes sat next to Jake. She was Earth's military representative. Lisa was a tough woman who had fought in 3 different wars before coming here. Jake could see her hands making fists under the table. "Earth has given more to this council than any other member," Lisa said. Her voice was calm, but Jake could hear the anger underneath. "Our soldiers have died for your causes. Our scientists have shared discoveries that helped your worlds. Our workers have built your stations and ships. And you call us lesser?" An alien made of swirling gas floated closer. This was one of the ethereals. They thought they were the smartest beings in the galaxy. "Human emotion clouds logic," the ethereal said. Its voice sounded like wind through trees. "Accept your role and be grateful for council protection." Admiral Frank Carter had been quiet during the whole meeting. He was the highest-ranking Earth military officer here. Frank was an old man with gray hair and scars on his hands from his time as a young soldier. Now he pulled out a small device and pressed a button. Jake knew what that device was. It was a direct line to Earth. Frank was sending a message to the president. Back on Earth, President Helen Torres was in a meeting room under the White House. The room had no windows and thick walls. Maps of space covered the walls. When Frank's message came through, everyone in the room stopped talking. "Read it out loud," Helen said. Secretary of Defense Ryan Phillips looked at the message on his screen. "The Council just passed Resolution 7749. They want 60% of our rare Earth metals and 100,000 soldiers. Ambassador Morrison and Captain Barnes both objected. The Council called us a lesser species that should know our place." Helen Torres had been president for 3 years. She was a smart woman who had worked her way up from being a small-town mayor. She had always believed in working with others and finding peaceful solutions. But sometimes people pushed too far. "Get me Admiral Hayes at Space Command," she said. "And call an emergency meeting of the cabinet. It's time." Chief of Staff Maria Rodriguez looked confused. "Time for what, Madam President?" Helen looked at the maps on the wall. They showed Earth's colonies and bases spread across dozens of star systems. Time to show the galaxy what happens when you push humans too far. Back on Nexus Prime, the voting continued. One by one, the alien species voted yes on Resolution 7749. The crystalline Zephyrians voted yes. The gas-form ethereals voted yes. The water-breathing depth species voted yes. Every single alien species voted to take resources from Earth and demand human soldiers. When it came time for Earth to vote, Jake stood up. "Earth votes no," he said. The council speaker made a noise that might have been laughter. The vote of a single species against all others means nothing. Resolution 7749 passes. Earth will comply within 30 standard days. Frank Carter's device beeped again. Another message from Earth. This one was longer. Frank read it quickly and then whispered something to Jake and Lisa. Jake felt his heart beat faster. After all these years of being pushed around, Earth was finally going to push back. I have a message for the council, Jake said, standing up again. Earth will not comply with Resolution 7749. In fact, Earth hereby gives the Galactic Council 48 hours notice of our intention to withdraw from all treaties and agreements. The room went completely quiet. Even the ethereals stopped floating around. The crystal beings dimmed their glow. Every alien eye, tentacle, and sensor was pointed at the three humans. You cannot be serious, Vexathari said. Earth needs the Council. Your little world would be nothing without us. Lisa Barnes stood up. We'll see about that, she said. Frank Carter pressed another button on his device. Across the galaxy, every human ship, station, and base received the same message. It was just 2 words, but every human knew what they meant. Operation Exodus. Jake looked around the room at all the alien faces. Some looked shocked. Others looked angry. A few looked worried. They should be worried, Jake thought. They were about to learn something about humans that they had never understood. Humans might be willing to work with others. They might be willing to follow rules and help their allies. They might even be willing to be called a lesser species for a while. But push them too far, treat them with no respect, and demand too much from them. And humans would show you exactly how lesser they really were. The 48-hour countdown had begun. Commander Steve Walsh watched the countdown clock on his screen. 36 hours left. Around him, the research station Kepler 442 was busy with activity. Humans were packing up 15 years of work in less than 2 days. How much longer do we need? Steve asked Dr. Amanda Foster. She was the head scientist on the station. Amanda had been working here longer than anyone else. She knew every computer, every research project, every piece of equipment. Give me 6 more hours, Amanda said. She was standing in front of a wall of computer servers. I need to make sure all our research data is either copied or destroyed. The aliens can't have access to our work. Steve nodded. The orders from Earth were clear. Take everything that belonged to humans. Destroy anything that could help the aliens. Leave nothing behind that they could use. This station had been a joint project. Humans worked alongside aliens from 5 different species. They studied new planets together. They shared discoveries about space and time. Steve had thought it was a good thing. Now he realized that humans had been doing most of the real work. In the next room, human workers were taking apart a gravity generator. The aliens had provided the rare materials for it, but humans had designed it and built it. Without human knowledge, the aliens couldn't even fix it if it broke. Commander Walsh, called out Lieutenant Bobby Harrison. The alien staff wants to talk to you. Steve walked to the main meeting room. 5 aliens were waiting for him. There was Zukar, a reptile-like being with green scales. Next to him stood Naylene, who looked like a tall human woman but had silver skin and no hair. The others were from species Steve had worked with for years. Steve, you cannot be serious about this, Zukar said. His English was good, but he hissed on the S sounds. We are friends. We work together. Why are you leaving? Orders from Earth, Steve said. We're withdrawing from all council operations. Naylene stepped forward. But what about our research? We are so close to finishing the project on faster-than-light communication. We could change the galaxy. Steve almost felt bad for them. These aliens were not the problem. They were good people who worked hard, but the council had made its choice. You can continue the research without us, he said. We cannot, Zukar said quietly. Humans designed most of the key parts. Without you, we do not know how to make it work. That was the problem, Steve thought. The aliens had gotten used to human help. They thought humans were just good workers who followed orders. They never realized that humans were the ones solving most of the hard problems. Across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out. Captain Nick Thompson was loading the last of the human colonists from the mining world Tau Ceti. The planet had huge deposits of rare metals that the Council needed. But it was human miners who had figured out how to extract them safely. The mining equipment too, Nick told his crew. All of it goes back to Earth. The alien overseer, a large creature with rock-like skin, watched in confusion. "You cannot take our equipment," he said. "It's not your equipment," Nick replied. "Every piece of this machinery was designed and built by humans. We're just taking back what belongs to us." The alien looked around at the massive mining complex. Machines that could dig through solid rock, processors that could separate valuable metals from worthless ore, transport systems that could move tons of material in minutes. All of it was human technology. "How will we continue mining?" the alien asked. Nick shrugged. "That's not our problem anymore." On the trade station Vega Prime, Merchant Captain Claire Davis was having a different kind of conversation. She was meeting with dozens of alien traders who depended on human goods. "You cannot cancel all these contracts," said Morkun, a blue-skinned trader who bought human electronics. "I have customers waiting for these shipments. I have already paid you." Claire looked at her list. Morkun had ordered computer processors, power cells, and medical equipment, all human-made. "Your money will be returned," she said. "But the goods stay with us." "Where will I get replacement products?" Morkun asked. "I don't know," Claire said. "Maybe you can find another species that makes them." But they both knew the truth. Humans were the only species that made certain types of technology. Other aliens were good at different things. The crystal beings could store huge amounts of energy. The gas creatures were great at analyzing data. The water dwellers could build things that worked in the deep ocean. But humans were the ones who could make complex machines work together. Humans were the ones who could take ideas from one field and use them in another. Humans were the ones who kept trying new things even when they failed. The Council had never understood this. They thought humans were useful because they were willing to work hard. They never realized that humans were necessary because they thought differently. Back on Kepler 442, Amanda Foster finished her work. She had copied all the human research data onto portable drives. Everything else had been wiped clean. The aliens would find empty computers and broken equipment. "It's done," she told Steve. 15 years of collaborative research is now either coming with us or destroyed forever. Steve felt a little sad about that. Good work was being lost. But Earth hadn't started this fight. The Council had pushed too hard, and now they would learn the cost. The last human transport ship arrived 6 hours later. Steve watched his people load their belongings and equipment. The aliens stood by quietly. Some looked angry, others looked confused, a few looked scared. "This is not over," Sukar said as Steve prepared to board the transport. "The Council will not let Earth get away with this." Steve stopped and looked back at the alien who had been his friend for 3 years. "The Council can try to stop us," he said. "But they might want to think about whether they can afford to make humans their enemies." On Earth, President Helen Torres was getting reports from across human space. The withdrawal was going better than anyone had expected. Human efficiency was surprising even the humans themselves. "Colony ships from Tau Ceti will be back in Sol System within the week," reported Admiral Patricia Hayes. "Mining operations have shut down completely. The aliens are stuck with equipment they don't know how to operate." "What about the research stations?" Helen asked. "All human personnel and equipment evacuated," said Ryan Phillips. "Dr. Foster's team was the last to leave. They took everything valuable and destroyed the rest." Helen nodded. Phase 1 was almost complete. Soon every human would be back in Earth-controlled space. The aliens would be left to figure out how much they had really depended on human skills and knowledge. "Any response from the Council yet?" Helen asked. "They're calling it a temporary tantrum," said Maria Rodriguez. "Councillor Vexathari announced that humans will come crawling back within a month when we realize we need them more than they need us." Helen almost smiled. The aliens still didn't understand. They thought this was about need. They thought humans were dependent on the Council for protection and trade. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Earth had been preparing for this day for longer than the Council realized. The question wasn't whether humans could survive without the Council. The question was whether the Council could survive without humans. The 48-hour deadline was almost up. Soon, Jake Morrison would deliver Earth's final message to the Galactic Council. Then the real test would begin. 3 months had passed since Earth cut ties with the Galactic Council. Colonel Ben Tucker stood on the bridge of Proxima Base, Earth's new fortress world at the edge of human space. Through the window, he could see construction ships building, new defense platforms and weapon systems. "Report," Ben said to Lieutenant Carol Peterson, his intelligence officer. Carol looked at her screen. "Alien supply lines are breaking down across the galaxy. The Zephyrian Empire is having power shortages. The Ethereal Collective can't maintain their deep space stations. The Depths Federation is running out of medical supplies." Ben nodded. It was happening faster than Earth had predicted. The aliens were learning just how much they had depended on human-made goods and services. "What about military situations?" Ben asked. 3 border conflicts have stopped because neither side has working equipment, Carol said. The Corvan Republic tried to fix their damaged warships, but they can't operate human-built engines without human technicians. On Earth, Dr. Karen White was briefing President Torres about something even more serious. Karen led the Xenobiology division, which studied alien life forms. She had discovered something that would shock the galaxy. "Madam President, we need to talk about the energy beings," Karen said. She was standing in the Oval Office with a tablet full of data. "What about them?" Helen asked. The energy beings lived in the Andromeda sector. They were mysterious creatures, made of pure energy who provided power to many alien worlds. "Humans are the only species that can communicate with them," Karen said. "Every other species tried for centuries and failed. Only humans can understand their language and negotiate with them." Helen felt her stomach drop. "How much of the galaxy's energy comes from them?" 47%, Karen said. "And without human translators, the aliens can't get any more energy contracts. The energy beings won't even talk to them." This was bigger than anyone had realized. Helen had thought the aliens would miss human technology and workers. She didn't know that humans were the only bridge between the energy beings and the rest of the galaxy. "How long before their current energy contracts run out?" Helen asked. "The first ones expire in 6 weeks, Karen said. "After that, entire star systems will start losing power." Meanwhile, on Nexus Prime, the Galactic Council was meeting an emergency session. For the first time in Council history, they were discussing the actions of a single species that had left the organization. "Counselor," Vexthari was no longer glowing brightly, the crystal being looked dim and tired. "The situation is worse than we first calculated," Vexthari admitted. "Human withdrawal has caused cascading failures across multiple sectors." General Paul Adams was watching this meeting from Earth. Human intelligence had never stopped monitoring Council communications. Earth wanted to know how badly the aliens were struggling. The ethereal representative floated nervously around the chamber. "Our manufacturing capacity has dropped by 68%, the gas being reported. Human-designed automation systems require constant human maintenance. Without them, our factories are shutting down." Counselor Mordoon of the Depth species was even more desperate. "Our medical crisis grows worse each day. Human nanobots were keeping millions of our people alive. We cannot replicate the technology." But the worst news came from the military sector. Fleet Commander Zexhai, a warrior from the insect-like Hive worlds, delivered a report that terrified everyone. "Our deep space monitoring network is failing," Zexhai said. His translator made his clicking sounds into words. "Humans maintained 73% of our early warning systems. Without them, we are blind to threats from dark space." The room went completely silent. Dark space was where the Void Collective lived. The Void Collective was every species' worst nightmare. They were beings from another dimension who consumed matter and energy. For 1,000 years, the galaxy had worked together to keep them out. "How much of our intelligence about the Void Collective came from human sources?" asked the council speaker. Zexhai consulted his datapad. 89%. Humans had monitoring stations in systems we could not reach. They shared all data, freely with the Council. Now that information stream has ended. On Earth, President Torres was meeting with her top advisors. The alien desperation was becoming obvious. Every day brought new messages from former Council allies. The Zephyrians are offering us full Council membership with equal voting rights, reported Secretary of State Linda Grant. The Ethereals want to sign exclusive trade agreements. Even the proud hive worlds are asking for help. Admiral Hayes brought even more dramatic news. 3 different species have sent secret delegations to Sol system. They're waiting at the edge of our space asking for permission to enter. Helen looked at the data on her desk. Economic collapse, energy shortages, medical emergencies, and military weakness. The galaxy was falling apart without human support. But there was something else that worried her more. What about the Void Collective? She asked General Adams. Paul's face was grim. Our deep space sensors are picking up increased activity. They seem to be massing for something big. Without our intelligence network, the Council has no idea what's coming. Captain Gary Wilson commanded Earth's new defense fleet. These ships were built using technology that humans had been secretly developing for years. While the Council thought humans were primitive, Earth had been working on advanced weapons and shields. The new ships are ready, Gary reported. We have 47 vessels equipped with quantum torpedoes and adaptive armor. Each ship is more advanced than anything the Council has ever seen. Helen nodded. Earth had used the past 30 years well. While serving in the Council and sharing some technology, humans had kept their best discoveries secret. They knew that someday they might need to defend themselves. Any response to our withdrawal ultimatum? Helen asked. Maria Rodriguez checked her messages. Ambassador Morrison delivered our final statement yesterday. We told the Council that Earth considers all previous treaties void. We will defend ourselves against any interference. The statement had been simple but clear. Earth was done being a junior member of someone else's organization. If the galaxy wanted human help, they would have to ask for it properly. But time was running out for everyone. Dr. White's latest report was even more alarming. The energy beings are asking where the humans went, Karen said. They liked working with us, they trusted us. Now they're confused about why we stopped coming to their space. What happens if they stop providing energy completely? Helen asked. Galactic civilization collapses within a year, Karen said. Billions of beings die. Entire species might go extinct. Helen Torres had to make the hardest decision of her presidency. Earth could stay isolated and let the galaxy burn. After 30 years of being treated like a lesser species, it would be satisfying to watch the aliens who had looked down on humans beg for help. But that wasn't what humans did. Even when others treated them badly, humans tried to do the right thing. The question was whether the galaxy deserved human help, and what price Earth should demand for it. In space near Earth, the alien delegations waited. They had come in small ships flying diplomatic flags. They wanted to talk. For the first time in galactic history, alien species were coming to humans as equals, asking for help instead of demanding service. The crisis was about to get much worse. Human satellites at the edge of the galaxy had detected something that made everyone's blood run cold. The Void Collective was moving in force toward the core worlds. Without human intelligence and technology, the Council had no idea what was about to hit them. Earth had 6 days to decide whether to save the galaxy that had rejected them or let cosmic justice take its course. The alarm that woke President Torres at 3 a.m. was one she had hoped never to hear. In the White House Situation Room, Admiral Hayes was waiting with the worst possible news. They're here, Patricia said. The Void Collective has broken through the outer rim defenses. 3 star systems have already gone dark. Helen looked at the display screen. Red markers showed where the Void Collective had attacked. These beings didn't just conquer worlds, they consumed them completely. Planets, stars, even space itself got absorbed into their dimension. How did they get through so fast? Helen asked. The Council's early warning systems failed completely, said General Adams. Remember, humans maintained most of their deep space monitoring network. Without us, They were blind to the attack. Fleet Admiral Lucy Chen was monitoring the battle from Earth's command center. She watched alien fleets trying to fight against an enemy they couldn't track or predict. It was a massacre. The Zephyrian Fourth Fleet just lost half its ships, Lucy reported. They're using outdated tactics against an enemy that evolved past those strategies years ago. Helen felt sick watching the display. Millions of beings were dying because the Council had been too proud to treat humans as equals. Now their arrogance was killing them. Any word from the Council? Helen asked. Secretary Grant checked her messages. Counselor Vexathari sent a priority communication 20 minutes ago. They're formally requesting immediate human assistance. Requesting? Helen asked. Actually, they're begging, Linda said. I've never seen anything like it. The entire Council has voted to offer humanity whatever we want in exchange for help against the Void Collective. On Nexus Prime, Ambassador Morrison was reading the most desperate message in galactic history. The proud aliens who had called humans a lesser species were now offering to make Earth the dominant power in the galaxy. But Jake knew it might be too late. Commander Tony Miller was sending reports from the communication center that painted a terrible picture. The quantum relay network is collapsing, Tony said. Humans built and maintained 68% of the communication stations. Without them, the Council can't coordinate their forces. This was the real disaster. Even if the aliens had good ships and weapons, they couldn't work together. Fleet commanders couldn't talk to each other. Planets couldn't call for help. The Void Collective was fighting a unified enemy, but the Council forces were scattered and confused. Dr. Sandra Powell had been studying the situation from Earth's think tank. Her analysis was frightening. At current rates of collapse, the galaxy has maybe 4 months before total defeat, she told the president. The Void Collective is learning and adapting faster than the Council can respond. Helen stared at the war maps. The red areas were growing larger every day. Soon they would reach the core worlds where billions of aliens lived. After that, the Void Collective would turn toward human space. What are our options? Helen asked her advisors. We could let them fight it out, said Defense Secretary Phillips. Earth is far enough away that we might survive even if the Council falls. For how long? Helen asked. If the Void Collective consumes the entire galaxy, how long before they come for us? Dr. Powell had run those calculations too. Maybe 50 years, she said. They would be much stronger by then. Earth alone probably couldn't stop them. But there was another factor. Captain Patricia Evans had been talking to the alien delegations waiting at Earth's borders. These weren't Council officials demanding human help. These were ordinary beings whose worlds were being destroyed. The delegation from New Kepler is just refugees, Patricia reported. Their entire solar system was consumed 3 days ago. They have nowhere else to go. Helen closed her eyes. This was the problem with being human. Even when others treated you badly, you still cared about innocent people getting hurt. Earth could have revenge against the Council by letting them fall. But revenge meant letting billions of innocents die. What would it take to stop the Void? Collective? Helen asked General Adams. Paul consulted his tactical analysis. Full human technology sharing, complete coordination of all galactic forces, and unified command structure. Basically, humans would have to take charge of the entire war effort. And what would we demand in return? Complete reformation of galactic government, said Secretary Grant. Equal representation for all species. Human-designed rights protection for younger civilizations. And Earth gets permanent leadership role in any future crisis. It was a huge price. The aliens would have to give up their superiority complex forever. They would have to accept that humans weren't just useful workers, but the natural leaders of galactic civilization. Admiral Carter was preparing the first human fleet to leave Earth space in 4 months. But these weren't the same ships that had withdrawn from Council territory. These were Earth's secret weapons built with technology that would amaze the galaxy. The new vessels are ready, Frank reported. Quantum shields, reality anchors, and dimensional weapons. We've been preparing for this war for decades. Helen realized something that made her proud and sad at the same time. While serving in the Council, Earth had been planning for the day when humans might have to save the galaxy. They had shared enough technology to seem cooperative but kept their best discoveries secret. "How long until our ships reach the combat zone?" Helen asked. 18 hours, Frank said. Admiral Carter, "We'll take command of all human forces, but Madam President, we need to know, are we going to save the Council or are we going to replace it?" That was the real question. Earth could rescue the aliens and go back to being junior partners, or Earth could save the galaxy and demand the leadership role that humans deserved. The decision came when the Void Collective broke through the mid-rim defenses. The ancient world of Arcadia Prime, home to the galaxy's greatest libraries and art collections, was consumed in minutes. Billions of years of galactic culture and knowledge were lost forever. "That's enough," Helen said. "Send the message to the Council. Earth will take command of galactic defense. All alien forces will follow human orders. All alien technology will be shared with human commanders. And when this war is over, we're going to build a better galaxy." The message that Ambassador Morrison delivered to the Council was unlike anything in galactic history. A species that had been dismissed as primitive was now demanding complete authority over the greatest crisis the galaxy had ever faced. "Earth accepts responsibility for galactic defense," Jake told the Council. "But we will do this our way, under our command, with our technology leading the effort. You will follow human orders without question. You will share all military assets with human commanders, and you will accept that humans are not your servants. We are your leaders." Counselor Vex Thari, whose crystal body was now barely glowing, had no choice but to agree. "The Council accepts Earth's terms," the alien said. "Please save us." The first human fleet arrived in Council space as the Void Collective was attacking the Rigel system. Admiral Carter's ships moved with precision and purpose that amazed the alien observers. These weren't the industrial vessels that had withdrawn months ago. These were warships that looked like they came from the future. Captain Evans commanded the Earthship Independence as it engaged Void Collective forces near Rigel Prime. The alien fleet commanders watched in amazement as human weapons tore through enemies that had seemed unstoppable. "How are they doing that?" asked Fleet Commander Zexhai, watching from his command ship. "Reality anchors," Patricia explained over the communication link. "The Void Collective exists partially in another dimension. We've learned to lock them into our reality where they can be hurt. For the first time in months, the good guys were winning a battle. But this was just the beginning. The Void Collective's main force was still coming, and it was bigger than anything the galaxy had ever seen. Earth had bought time, but now they had to win a war. The galaxy was about to learn what humans could do when they stopped holding back. The final battle began when the Void Collective's main force reached the core worlds. From Earth's command center, Admiral Carter watched as enemy forces surrounded Nexus Prime itself. The station that had once dismissed humans as a lesser species was now depending on them for survival. "Enemy strength?" Frank asked his tactical officer. Lieutenant Danny Brooks checked his readings. 1,200 void ships, sir, plus dimensional anchors that let them pull in reinforcements from their home reality. Frank nodded. The aliens had never understood how dangerous the Void Collective really was. For 30 years, humans had been studying these beings, learning their weaknesses, preparing for this moment. "All human fleets, this is Admiral Carter," Frank said into his communicator. "Execute Operation Lighthouse." Across the galaxy, human ships began moving with perfect coordination. Captain Evans led the first fleet in a direct assault on the Void Collective's command vessels. Admiral Hayes commanded the second fleet as they attacked the dimensional anchors. General Scott Anderson coordinated ground forces that would board and capture enemy technology. But the real key to victory was something the aliens had never suspected. Dr. Karen White had discovered that the energy beings from Andromeda were actually ancient enemies of the Void Collective. For millions of years, they had been locked in a cold war across dimensional boundaries. "The energy beings want to help," Karen reported from her communication station, "but they can only work with humans. We are the only species they trust to coordinate a joint operation." President Torres watched the battle from Earth while making the hardest decision of her life. The old Galactic Council was finished. When this war ended, humanity would have to build something new. "Madam President," said Secretary Grant, "we're getting surrender offers from 3 different council members. They want to make separate peace deals with Earth." "No separate deals," Helen said firmly. "Either we all win together, or we all lose together. That's what real allies do." The battle around Nexus Prime was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human ships moved through space like they were dancing, avoiding void attacks while targeting weak points that aliens couldn't even detect. The advanced technology that Earth had kept secret was finally being revealed. Captain Patricia Evans commanded the Earth ship Freedom as it led an attack on the Void Collective's largest vessel. "Target their dimensional core," she told her weapons officer. "If we can collapse it, they'll be trapped in our reality." "Human ship Freedom, this is Fleet Commander Zexahai," came a voice over the radio. "Your attack pattern is impossible. How are you predicting their movements?" Patricia smiled. "We've been watching them for 30 years, she said. "We know how they think." That was the difference between humans and other species. When the aliens encountered something they didn't understand, they usually avoided it or tried to destroy it. When humans found something mysterious, they studied it until they figured out how it worked. General Anderson was leading the most dangerous part of the operation. His soldiers were boarding Void Collective ships to plant reality bombs that would cut off their escape routes. It was incredibly risky, but humans were good at taking calculated risks. "Package delivered," Scott reported from inside an enemy vessel. "Void ships in Sector 7 are now locked in our dimension." The tide of battle was turning. For the first time in galactic history, the Void Collective was losing a major engagement. But the real surprise came when the energy beings arrived. Brilliant. Lights began appearing around the battlefield. The energy beings had crossed dimensional barriers to join the fight, but they only responded to human commands, treating the alien species like they weren't even there. "This is incredible," said Admiral Hayes as she watched energy being weapons tear through void defenses. "They're treating us like their favorite students." Dr. White had figured out why. "Humans think like they do," she explained. "We're curious about everything. We try to understand instead of just judging. The energy beings respect that." The combined human and energy being assault broke the Void Collective's main force in less than 6 hours. Enemy ships that had seemed unstoppable were destroyed or forced to retreat to their home dimension. The greatest threat the galaxy had ever faced was defeated, but winning the war was only the beginning. Ambassador Morrison stood before what remained of the Galactic Council to announce Earth's terms for the post-war galaxy. "The old council is finished," Jake said. "It failed because it was based on the idea that some species are superior to others. We're going to build something better." The new Galactic Compact was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Every species got equal representation regardless of how old or advanced they were. Younger civilizations got protection from exploitation, and humans took the role of neutral mediators when conflicts arose. "But why should humans lead?" asked Counselor Vexithari. The crystal being was still weak from the energy crisis that Earth had helped resolve. "Because we're the only species that treats everyone else as equals," Jake replied. "You spent 30 years calling us lesser while depending on our work. We spent 30 years learning about all of you and figuring out how to help." The signing ceremony took place on a new station built jointly by humans and aliens. President Torres stood next to beings from dozens of species as they created the foundation for a better future. "Today we're not just ending a war," Helen said. "We're starting a new kind of civilization. One based on cooperation instead of dominance. One where every species has value and every voice matters." The changes were visible immediately. The Zephyrians shared their energy storage technology freely instead of hoarding it. The Ethereals began teaching their data analysis methods to younger species. The Depths Dwellers opened their deep ocean worlds to scientific research. But the biggest change was in how everyone saw humans. The species that had been dismissed as primitive were now recognized as the natural peacekeepers and problem solvers of the galaxy. Captain Evans was given command of the new Galactic Defense Force. Her first mission was to establish monitoring stations that would watch for future threats. But unlike the old Council's military, this force included soldiers and officers from every member species. "We're not building human dominance, Patricia told her mixed-species crew. "We're building true partnership." Dr. White established the Galactic Research Institute, where humans worked with energy beings to study the fundamental nature of reality. The knowledge they discovered would benefit every species in the galaxy. General Anderson created the Peacekeeping Corps, an organization that helped resolve conflicts before they became wars. The Corps was led by humans but included members from every species that wanted to help. 5 years after Earth cut ties with the old council, Ambassador Morrison stood in the rebuilt Nexus Prime. The new station was designed by humans and aliens working together as true partners. It was beautiful in a way that no single species could have achieved alone. "You know what I learned?" Jake said to President Torres during her visit to the station. "We were never a lesser species. We were just the only species that believed. Everyone else was our equal." Helen nodded as she looked around at the busy station. Humans worked alongside crystalline beings, gas creatures, and dozens of other species, but now they worked as partners instead of servants. The galaxy had learned something important. Technology and age didn't make a species superior. What mattered was how you treated others, how you solved problems, and whether you were willing to help even when no one appreciated it. Earth had saved the galaxy not through superior weapons or ancient wisdom, but through the simple human belief that everyone deserved respect and help when they needed it. In the end, that was what made humans truly special. The universe was safer now, and it was ruled not by the strongest or oldest species, but by the one that had always believed in bringing out the best in everyone else. Sometimes the youngest voice in the room really did have the most important things to say. And now, finally, the galaxy was listening.